Chapter 97, Giving Up. It had been 4 days. 4 days of blindness. Aaron, Cup, and Emily had stayed relentlessly upbeat. They laughed, they cooked, they talked about everything and anything except powers. When the subject came too close, they smothered it gently, said it wasn't worth worrying about, said Rylan and Vouette would come, said 1,000 things that sounded reassuring until Jake listened too closely and realized they were just excuses dressed up as hope. He wanted to scream. He hadn't felt this bored, this empty, this useless since grade school, since before he'd discovered his sight. He'd forgotten what life had been like without it, forgotten how small the world felt when you could only see what was right in front of you. For 2 days, he barely left his bed. He stared at the ceiling, rotting, trying not to think about the fact that everyone else seemed content to be normal again. That thought made something twist in his chest. Normal wasn't a relief. Normal was a cage. Normal was just a curse he couldn't accept. He didn't just wish for his powers back. He worked at it. He tried 1,000 times to see through the eyes that used to exist just beyond himself. He tried new angles, new focuses. He imagined changing how his powers worked, reshaping it, tricking it, forcing it to adapt. Lying flat on his back, he raised his arms towards the ceiling and made slow, awkward movements, as if sculpting something invisible. He imagined magic flowing through his hands, not sight, something else, something physical. A drone. No, too complex. He settled on a shape, a semi-translucent sphere, about the size of a softball, weightless, smooth, barely there. For a heartbeat, he thought he could see it. He thought he could feel the cool, perfect surface resting in his palm. Then he blinked, and it vanished. Jake exhaled sharply and heard laughter drifting from outside the door. Someone was happy. Someone was fine with this. The sound made his stomach turn. He pushed himself upright with a grunt and stared at his open hand again. This time, he imagined a mechanical bug. He tried for a dragonfly, but his mind betrayed him, and it came out wrong. A grasshopper body with butterfly wings. He frowned, annoyed at himself, and closed his hand around it. Something crunched, and Jake froze. He opened his hand slowly. Fine crystalline dust coated his palm. Not much, barely anything at all, but it glittered faintly in the light. He could feel where the thing had collapsed under his grip. His breath came faster. He jumped to his feet and fled to the kitchen, adrenaline crashing into hunger. He poured himself an enormous bowl of cereal, enough for 2 meals, maybe 3 if you believed the serving sizes on the box. He was smiling at it when he realized there was no milk. "Hey," he called out, trying not to sound irritated. "We're out of milk. Can we get some?" Aaron pointed at a whiteboard on the wall without looking up. "Put it on the list. We'll get more delivered." Jake rolled his eyes. He didn't want delivery. He wanted out. He wanted movement. He wanted to do something. He scrawled milk on the board in letters far too large, then paused and added chocolate bars, ice cream, and cookies underneath before stalking back to his room. At night, when everyone slept, he had to share it. During the day, they crowded into the living room and the backyard like this was a vacation home. He ate dry cereal with one hand and imagined another construct in the other. This one looked like a mouse with wings, and he didn't know why. He knew perfectly well what a dragonfly looked like. He shook his head. The creature shattered again. More dust, shiny, gritty, real. Whatever this was, he was going to chase it. It wasn't sight, but it was something he could push, something he could learn. For a moment, the thought crossed his mind that he might be losing it. Then he stood, walked into the hallway. Nina was leaning against the wall, half watching the living room. Jake thrust his closed hand towards her face. "Do you see this?" he demanded. She flinched and swatted his hand away. "What the hell, Jake? Stop!" He clutched his fist tighter and dodged back. "Do you see what's in my hand?" Nina frowned and leaned closer. "Is that glitter?" Jake grinned, bounced once on his toes, and spun back towards his room. "Nope," he called back simply. It was real, actually real. All he had to do now was figure out how it worked and what it was. He didn't know how long he'd been experimenting when someone knocked on the door. The sound snapped through his focus like a gunshot. "What?" Jake snapped. Cup opened the door, relaxed as ever. "What's up, kid?" Jake glared at him. He liked Cup. He just didn't want him here. Not now. Cup leaned against the frame, eyebrows raised. "What are you working on?" he asked with his trademark grin. "Nothing," Jake muttered, having his half-eaten cereal and shoving a handful into his mouth. Cup watched him chew. "You get your eyes back?" Jake garbled something unintelligible. Cup chuckled. "Whatever, I was thinking we should start a club or something for the wizard crowd." Jake paused. That sounded cool. Cup kept going. "Like one of those houses. Gryffindor, Birdhouse. You read those books, right?" Jake laughed, cereal flying everywhere as he choked mid-snort. He coughed violently, spitting soggy flakes back into the bowl. Cup waited, amused and patient. "Yeah," Jake said finally, wiping his mouth and shaking his head. "I read them. We can do way better than that." "Oh yeah?" Cup shrugged. "What's better?" "The X-Men?" Jake nearly shouted. "Ninjas, robots, pirates, dragons, literally everything is cooler than that." Cup laughed. "All right, think about it. Finish breakfast. We'll write ideas on the whiteboard tonight." Jake nodded quickly. "Yeah, I'll think." Cup left, closing the door softly behind him. Jake stared after him, and then looked down at his cereal. He took another bite, half dry, half soggy with his saliva, and immediately spit it out with a grimace. He set the bowl aside, and then he went back to work.